How did we become a great country? By kicking the heinies of anybody who threatened our borders. And that's what I was doing. I was protecting my border. Yeah, right. If a man comes into my house, he better be carrying a summons or a pizza. That's right. But this man wasn't, so I called in the Marines and the 50. How did we become?
Hey, Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Hogs to win, see you. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
Hello, Patriots. Big, really shocking and big news today. And it really has to kind of do with the culture of the United States and where it's going, particularly when it comes to guns and just the legal system persecuting anybody with a pulse for any reason they essentially see fit. And this story is incredibly concerning. So Ethan Crumbly was a school shooter, and he in Michigan. He shot up the school. I think he killed 4 people, and he was arrested. He was sentenced to life in prison. Now, what is incredibly unique about this case is that not only was he arrested, they arrested his parents. Now, his parents did not help plan or entice him or encourage him to shoot up the school, but they were arrested and charged, and his mother was just convicted of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in Michigan because they failed, essentially, in a nutshell, they failed to safeguard their guns. Therefore, the child was able to access the guns and kill people at school, so the parents are guilty. It's an incredibly broad legal theory, and it raises some serious concerns. Now, obviously, the biggest concern is where does this end? Where does this go? If I have a 16-year-old, if I don't have a 16-year-old, but if I had a 16-year-old and they had a drinking problem and they're underage, and they're drinking one night, I don't know, they grab my keys, they get in my car, they drive drunk, they kill somebody. Am I liable for that person's death because I didn't hide my car keys? Or if they take a kitchen knife from the drawer and go rob a 7-Eleven, troubled kid, or even a roommate at that point, and killed somebody or hurt somebody, am I liable for not locking up the knives and ensuring that kind of stuff doesn't happen? This case is being treated differently because it's about guns, and it's always treated differently because it's about when it's about guns. But a gun is a weapon. So is a knife. So is a baseball bat. So they're in the same categories of weapons. So if it applies to one, then it's going to apply to the others. And this is where the danger comes in. I mean, we're turning into a society where you're no longer free. I mean, you're no longer protected. And the notion that, all of your guns need to be locked up and secured. Well, that's great. But what if I can't get to it now because it's locked up and somebody's breaking into my house? What's the point? So that's not really a common. That's not really a common thing where, gun owners have 100% of their guns locked up and tucked away. Like, people keep them by their bedside tables. People keep them, in their closets. Like they're accessible and ready to use to defend yourself. And, you know, you hear this argument constantly from the left. You need to lock up your firearms. It's like, it really depends. It really depends on the situation, who you have in the house, etc. But if you need to access the firearm, you need to access the firearm. You don't have time to run in wherever your safe is, in your bedroom or in your living room, and okay, 2 to the right, 5, 72, unlock, shoot, okay, grab the gun, load it. Like, you don't have time for that if somebody's breaking in your house and trying to kill you and your family. So that's always an invalid argument. Always an invalid argument. But this is incredibly unjust, in my opinion, that these parents are being persecuted and about to be sentenced, with the mother anyway, the father has not gone to trial yet, for not locking up their firearms. Now there's some body cam footage of the parents being arrested. Before we go any further, and we're going to deep dive into this a lot more, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop a comment down below. And if you're on the podcast, make sure you download this episode and please leave a review.
More dramatic video in the trial of the mother of school shooter Ethan Crumbly. Jurors were shown the moment the parents were arrested. There'd been a manhunt for the couple until they were found in the middle of the night hiding out in an artist's studio.
It's dramatic body cam video of a SWAT team arresting the parents of school shooter Ethan Crumbly. The video was played to the jury at the trial of Ethan Crumbly's mother. It's intended to show how the Crumblies went on the run following the school shooting, hiding from cops in an artist's studio owned by a friend. Jennifer Crumbly is lying on a mattress, apparently pretending to be asleep despite the chaos around her. Cops lift up the mattress they were using to search for weapons. The jury was also shown desperate text messages Mom Jennifer sent her son the day of the massacre. Ethan, don't do it, she texted. Moments later, his father texted, Ethan, call me now. But their pleas came minutes too late to prevent the murders of 4 students. And there was bombshell testimony today when a firefighter claimed he had had an extramarital affair with Jennifer Crumbly.
What the hell does that have to do with anything? They do this in court all the time. Well, she had an affair. What does that have to do with this case? It has nothing to do with this case. But they try to divert and say, oh, well, no, she's an immoral person. She doesn't care. It's nonsense. It's ridiculous.
You told police that you and Mrs. Crumbly had had an extramarital affair, correct?
Correct.
You told police from the very beginning your relationship with Mrs. Crumbly involved a sexual relationship, correct?
Right.
Jennifer Crumbly's appearance has changed dramatically since her arrest in 2021.
Whose wouldn't?
This is how she looked when she met with school officials the day of the shooting. 2 years behind bars awaiting trial have taken a visible toll.
Both Jennifer Crumbly and her husband James have pleaded not guilty to 4 charges of involuntary manslaughter.
I mean, who wouldn't, under that level of stress, wouldn't be affected by it? But she was found guilty. I mean, this is completely just shocking. Completely shocking. Her son was sentenced to life, as he should be. He's lucky he didn't get the death penalty. This is the sentencing of their son, Ethan Crumbly.
Now to the sentencing of Ethan Crumbly, the convicted shooter in the Oxford High School shooting in Michigan. Let's listen in.
Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling. Also, you are not to have any contact with the following victims or their families, that being Phoebe Arthur, John Osito, Molly Darnell, Riley France, Elijah Mueller, Kylie Osage, Aiden Watson, and Keegan Gregory. And I will note that restitution is payable to the Crime Victims' Right Compensation Program. With that, Michigan Department of Corrections, did I miss anything?
Court order 130 crime victims fee, $60 DNA cost, and DNA testing.
Thank you. DNA cost is $60. Crime Victims' Right fee at $130. Did I miss anything else?
DNA testing, Your Honor.
DNA testing is hereby ordered. Thank you. With that, Ms. Crumbly, you are entitled to file an application for leave to appeal. If you are financially unable to retain a lawyer, the court will appoint a lawyer to represent you on appeal. The request for a lawyer must be filed within 42 days after sentencing. Your attorney is going to be handing you an appellate rights form, sir. Do you acknowledge receipt of the appellate rights form?
Your Honor, I have tendered that to my client. He has signed it, and I will tender it to the court.
Thank you very much. With that, counsel, anything else for the record?
Nothing from the defense.
Thank you very much. With that, deputies, you may take Mr. Crumbly. To those in the gallery, please be seated until he is exited.
I mean, justice served. The victims are never going to come back. But he was sentenced. He got life in prison. I mean, what else should he get besides maybe the death penalty, if you believe in that? But it's completely outrageous that we are convicting the mother for the actions of the child.
The trial for Michigan mom Jennifer Crumbly is underway. Crumbly's charged with involuntary manslaughter along with her husband after their son shot and killed 4 of his classmates at a Michigan high school in 2021. ABC's Melissa Adon shares the evidence prosecutors showed in court this afternoon.
Testimony at the Jennifer Crumbly trial today revealing more of what happened the day Ethan Crumbly opened fire inside his Michigan high school in 2021, killing 4 classmates. Today, text messages between Crumbly and her former boss, Andrew Smith, were shown in court. Crumbly telling her boss she had to leave work briefly to go to her son's school for a meeting. Hours later, Crumbly texting Smith, "The gun is gone, and so are the bullets," then saying, "He's going to kill himself. He must be the shooter." Followed later by "Ethan did it," and one text saying, "I need my job. Please don't judge me for what my son did." Smith testifying it would have been no problem if she didn't return to work that day to tend to her son. The morning of the shooting, Crumbly and her husband met with the dean of students at the time at Oxford High School to discuss disturbing drawings Ethan had done. Nicholas Ejak saying in court he found it odd the Crumbleys didn't remove their son from school following the meeting.
Typically when it's recommended that parents take their children to seek out mental assistance immediately, they follow the direction of the mental health professional.
Prosecutors alleging Crumbly and her husband allowed their son to have access to guns and ignored his cries for help. In court today, images shown from inside the family home. A detective testifying they found an empty gun box on the bed in the master bedroom and an empty box of bullets. The case was from a gun the parents had recently bought Ethan. The detectives testifying in Ethan's room, they found shooting targets with bullet holes hung on the wall.
Well, yeah. I mean, people shoot targets and then hang them up in their house.
Ethan was sentenced to life without parole after he pleaded guilty to 24 charges, including first-degree premeditated murder and terrorism causing death.
Crumbly is expected to take the stand in her own defense. Today, her lawyer said they were willing to allow unredacted Facebook messages between Crumbly and her husband to be on the record, which they had previously argued to have portions redacted. Melissa Adon, ABC News, Los Angeles.
So it looks like the parents know that there's a school shooting. So the one goes home and they're like, "Oh my God, the gun is gone, and so are the bullets." And then they start texting Ethan, "Stop, don't do it. Call me now," trying to prevent the situation. It doesn't seem like parents who don't care. She texts her boss and says, "Hey, please don't judge me. I need this job. My son did this, not me." Okay. And they're using this against them, like it's some sort of evidence of some nefarious act, and it's preposterous. It's preposterous. And then they say, "Well, we recommended that the child gets psychological help." Blah 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 blah. Normally they, and then the dean's like, well, normally the parents take them out. I mean, shut up, dude. You don't know. We don't know that, right? That's just the school trying to save their own ass, saying, well, no, hold on a second. We tried to mitigate this. And the parents wouldn't allow it. So they're skirting responsibility over to the parents, because in any school shooting situation, the public is out for blood. I mean, they want everybody they can get their hands on to make sure that this kind of stuff won't happen again. And they're trying to hold the parents accountable for what reason I can't possibly fathom. I don't understand it, but that's me. I could be wrong, even though I do not think that I am. So they're saying, well, normally they take them out of school and they get them mental health. I mean, you have guidance counselors there. You have psychologists. There are state laws where, like in Florida, there's the Baker Act, or there's other acts where if you're going to hurt yourself or others, the police can take you into custody and take you to a psychiatric facility against your will. Michigan has a similar law. I'm certain of it. You can't just go around saying you're going to hurt yourself or hurt others and then they just let you go. That's not how that works. So was the signs not that bad? Were they not that high? I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. When you're looking back on a situation and you're saying, oh crap, now I see all of this stuff that was happening then that I didn't realize was happening then is happening now. And it's really tough to kind of know and see the signs, because even when you see signs in anybody, sometimes you just don't recognize it as an actual problem. We see this all the time with people who commit suicide. And what does everybody say? Oh, we didn't notice any signs. There was nothing to notice. I mean, he or she, they didn't show any indication that they would do that. And you kind of see the same thing with school shooters, where people are super surprised, or sometimes they're not. But as time goes on and you look back, you start to realize, oh, I remember one time the person who killed himself said this, and that, right? Disclaimer for Facebook policies: if you or anybody you know are seeking to harm yourself or others, you need to seek help and call the suicide hotline. But so this just happened like yesterday, and already the jury foreperson is on the television, immediately on the television. And we're going to watch their interview on, I think it's CNBC or MSNBC, one of those.
The jury foreperson in this first of its kind trial is with us now, Alex.
Look at this person. Number one, she's a child. She's probably in her low to mid 20s. She's the jury foreperson. She looks, just by appearance, she looks super liberal, left wing. That's fine, because political ideology shouldn't take any place in a case, right?
Alex, good morning to you. We're not mentioning your last name for your own privacy reasons. I have to say, to have you here, it's a privilege, because what we ask jurors to do in this country is really, really difficult.
Very difficult.
To sit in judgment of their fellow citizen, and that is something that you and your fellow jurors did. What was it like in that courtroom, having that responsibility and delivering that verdict yesterday?
There was definitely a weight. I think anytime we entered the courtroom, there was an undeniable weight on us. We all took the responsibility that was put upon us seriously, and I'm just one of 12 that made a very difficult decision.
What was the evidence that swayed you in the end? You said it wasn't an easy decision. This wasn't a slam dunk.
Not easy at all. So speaking for myself, I know that each individual juror had their own opinion. This did this for one person, this convinced the other. For me, I just feel like Jennifer didn't separate her son from the gun enough to save those lives that day.
Because she didn't know he was going to kill anybody. She had no idea he was going to kill anybody. It wasn't like, hey, Mom, I'm going to do a school shooting. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, don't worry about it. I'll just leave the gun out. That's not what happened. That's the case with any school shooting or any robbery that a minor does. Oh, well, you didn't separate us, so here you go. You go off to jail.
You felt she was the last person known to have had custody of the gun.
Yes.
And then somehow it ends up in his hands.
And I think the responsibility of securing the weapon then falls on her.
What about
where are you required to lock up your personal weapon? Is that illegal? Is that illegal in any state in the United States of America where you have to have your weapon locked up? We're just making things up at this point in our political system, in our court system. We're just making things up. Oh, well, they should have done that. Okay, well, looking back, yeah, but if you don't know that they're going to commit this shooting, how the hell are you going to hold somebody accountable for involuntary manslaughter where they could face 15, 20 years in prison?
Those text messages or journal entries or things that the jurors saw where it indicated that Ethan had asked for help and that his parents hadn't given him that help. Was that persuasive to you?
To me personally, it wasn't as impactful as the evidence of her having the gun. But I know for my fellow jurors that the notebook.
Who gives a shit if she had the gun?
Played a huge part.
Tell me about her testimony. It's Jennifer Crumbly took the stand in her own defense. She testified. What did you make of her on the witness stand?
At the time, I tried to take her as she gave herself. But once we went into deliberation, it became clear that she wasn't a super reliable witness in this case.
Do you?
Oh, hold on a second. Let's rewind that. I want to listen to what she said one more time.
Became clear and played a huge part.
Tell me about her testimony. It's Jennifer Crumbly took the stand in her own defense. She testified. What did you make of her on the witness stand?
At the time, I tried to take her as she gave herself. But once we went into deliberation.
At the time, I tried to take her as she gave herself, right? Like, oh, I'm taking you with a grain of salt. But then as we went into deliberation,
it became clear that she wasn't a super reliable witness in this case.
Do you think she helped?
So deliberation is just the jury's talking about what happened. So she's basically saying, here's what she just said. I took her as she presented herself. When we went into deliberation, I was swayed by everybody else that she was full of shit.
She helped herself on the stand or hurt herself? Would it have been better, in other words, if she hadn't testified at all?
We'll never know.
Yeah. You talked about her testimony. There was a point where she was asked, would you have done anything differently? And she said she wouldn't have. How did that strike you and the other jurors?
It was repeated a lot in the deliberation room, I think.
So it depends on the context of that statement. If you could go back and do things differently, would you? Okay, knowing what I know now, yes. But if I could go back knowing what I knew then, would I do anything different? The answer would be no. So it depends on the context of how she's saying that.
That it was very upsetting to hear. I think that there are many small things that could have been done to prevent this.
Well, and that's fine too, but also by saying, if you could go back and change anything you did, would you? Yes. Okay, well then you're guilty of manslaughter. It's an admission that you did something wrong. So she's kind of screwed either way how she answers that question.
When you went back into the jury room, you're the jury foreperson.
I am.
Which is a big responsibility. And I should just mention again, there is no manual for jurors. Nobody tells jurors how to deliberate. So how did you handle it? And how was the jury immediately in agreement, or how did it play out?
So I took it more as a job of facilitation. I wanted to make sure that each and every juror, to the best of my ability, was heard and understood and made their point, and we heard their piece. And so that was the role that I took on as the foreperson. It was not immediately unanimous, and it was my responsibility to hear the concerns of those on either side and construct an argument either way.
Do you feel that the jurors wish they could have heard from Ethan Crumbly himself?
I'm not sure how much that would have helped or hurt.
Alex, thank you so much for your civil service. Being a juror is not easy, and this was a very difficult case. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's really not a difficult case.
Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for watching.
This was such a difficult decision. I mean, but that's the quality of juror you have there in this case. You can kind of tell. And she's the lead juror. She's the foreman. She's the one who's leading all the other juries, and she's a child who clearly doesn't have a whole lot of, experience just in life. I mean, let alone to decide the outcome of somebody's life. But that's kind of what lawyers want. They want idiots on juries.
There was a verdict just come in the Jennifer Crumbly trial. This is the mother of Ethan Crumbly, who shot at the Oxford High School in Michigan back in November of 2021. She was on trial because she bought the gun that her son used in this school shooting. Our Jonathan Hunt has been following this trial, and he's got the very latest. Jonathan, I think this verdict was surprising for a lot of people, that the mother has now been held accountable for the actions of the son.
Yeah, found guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. And throughout this trial, the prosecution essentially argued, John, that Jennifer Crumbly, the 45-year-old mother of Ethan Crumbly, ignored warning signs that her son was considering violence, that she did not respond to texts he sent her. Again, that the parents, Jennifer Crumbly, and her husband, James Crumbly, who will go on trial next month, bought the gun. They did nothing to prevent Ethan carrying out the violence that prosecutors argued they could have foreseen, given the warning signs, including drawings, violent drawings that he had done at school, and words that he had written on those drawings saying blood everywhere. They also portrayed Jennifer Crumbly, who you see there as the verdict was being read, as a negligent mother, a mother who ignored her son's texts pleading for help, a mother who prosecutors said was far more interested in her horses than her son, far more interested in the extramarital affair she was having at the time than she was in her son. So this is a legal verdict, John, of huge significance. One of the first times, possibly the first ever, I'm not entirely sure of that, but that a mother, a parent, has been held responsible for their child's actions in a mass shooting. And remember, Ethan Crumbly, of course, killed 4 students, 4 of his classmates at Oxford High School in Michigan on November 30th, 2021. And his mother, Jennifer Crumbly, now found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. His father, Ethan...
So he's going to go on to say his father is going to face essentially the same fate. And that's exactly what's going to happen. His dad's going to go on trial too, and we'll see if they convict the dad. It would be interesting if they did not. Here's the actual reading of the verdict, and you can see how shocked her lawyer and her are that she's actually guilty.
On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
And lawyers usually don't react. And neither do defendants. They told them, don't react, don't say anything, don't make any faces, don't do anything, just sit there. But look how shocked the lawyer is. Watch that again.
On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
And the lawyer cries. The lawyer cries.
The involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
Thank you for allowing me to be seated. And I'm going to listen to
an historic moment in this country amid the school shootings we have witnessed as a country. Again, this is the first.
absolutely, just to me, it's astounding that we live in a society where people are this out of touch and okay with persecution for basically anything. So here is, this is in Michigan, how the prosecution proves involuntary manslaughter charges. When faced with involuntary manslaughter charges, the prosecution must prove all of the following conditions without a shadow of a doubt. The victim died because of your actions. The actions you took were egregiously negligent, or you intended to cause the victim harm but not necessarily kill them. You did not have lawful justification for taking the victim's life. Those are the three things that it needs to be, that need to qualify for manslaughter. So this woman got charged with 4 counts of manslaughter. Did it meet this criteria? The victim died because of your actions. Okay, but how far can that go? How far can that go? Like I said earlier, with the keys, if I left my keys on the counter and my wife takes my car and she goes out and kills somebody, and my actions led to that death. She wouldn't have taken my car if I didn't leave them on the counter. Am I guilty of manslaughter? The actions you took were egregiously negligent. Was my negligence so egregious that I knowingly left my keys on the counter, or I knowingly left my knife on the counter and somebody grabbed my knife and killed somebody else with it? This is the problem with creating too many laws. I have never been a fan of manslaughter charges in court when I was a police officer. I did not like them because there's really, with manslaughter, there's no intent. Like, what crime did you commit? They just created a crime. So when they can't get somebody for murder, they go after them for manslaughter. It's really what it is. You know, negligence is not necessarily criminal. It's absurd. This whole case is absurd. It sets a dangerous precedent for especially gun owners now, because now any gun owner, you could be prosecuted because you didn't do anything with your gun. You didn't lock it up, even though you don't really have to lock it up. There's nothing saying you have to lock it up. It's wild. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Ryan Samuel Show. Do not forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ryan Samuel Show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.